Because the person often comes in agitated. I mean, there's something going on, and and they're distressed by something, and that becomes the initial point of contact. And sometimes that's really what we really need to be paying attention to. After all, that's what's their main problem that day. But the angle they're taking to address it, right, is got a lot of this sort of agitation and mind, a lot of mind. And I'm often just sitting and waiting. Internally, I'm hearing it, I'm present, but I'm like waiting. Like, what? I mean, that's too passive. I'm not waiting. I'm receiving it, and sort of, where's the moment? Where is the charge? Where is the center of this that I can then act from? And I've learned to trust that. So I could sit and not respond much at all. I mean, I'm responding, but I'm not saying anything or suggesting anything, for quite a while. And I know that's disturbing to the client sometimes. What are you doing? I know I'm listening. I want to know what's the central, most important thing, which I think is the kind of digestion that you're talking about.
So I'm popping back in because you guys are showing me a picture of me as a non-therapist, what I can be doing in everyday situations in my life where I'm engaging with somebody and I may be feeling all kinds of feelings, and what I can do in that moment is just sit and listen and say, oh yes, and I hear you, and not have to be thinking about my response and preparing my answer and getting ready to take an action. Again, what happens when I'm sitting back? What's happening to me in terms of my emotions, and what's happening to me in terms of my digestion when I'm kind of picking up the behavior that you guys are describing in that moment? There's a question there, like, what is really happening to you when you're sitting in that moment? What is happening to you? What will happen for me when I'm sitting there kind of just soaking it in?
That's interesting. I think that's really a helpful thing for the internal part that people have or really accomplished comes from some kind of inner preparation. And in our world, that inner preparation comes from Qigong, and from understanding that, when you do your practice, there's activity, but inside it's quiet. If you're aiming for quiet, so that somehow the usual means you have of doing something is not what guides the practice. That sort of thing you're talking about, you're strategizing, you're thinking about what to do next. How can I have an impact here? Who should I talk to? What's the angle? All of that mind strategizing stuff, kind of learn to put aside and trust there's something else inside going on that we could talk about in terms of like energy and internal processing and what's going on in the organs and the way your body is centering itself. But out of that comes, I think, from what comes towards what Buddhists call right action, like being able to respond at the moment with what the moment's calling for, which your mind can't really, it's too big for the mind. So you have to use some other means of orienting. That's how I think of it.
A friend of mine used to ask this question: what does the situation need? And so in order to really know that and to start to take the first step toward that, there's a sort of a peace that you have to get to inside so that you're comfortable and you have what you need to take the right action, right? Yeah. So that was in my mind as well, that place of peace is also a place of power. And I think that speaks to that inner power that you were getting to, that's underneath all the movements and the strategies, but there's an inner power that we want to access.
And that's beautiful. Wow, that's so powerful. Yeah, we have learned, each of us from Grandmaster Lu. He says so many times, the answer lies within. So if that's true, then we have to have a way of getting there, to finding the within that holds the answer. And many times we're disrupted by situations, by our emotions, by how we believe, what we believe is the trouble and problems. And so, yeah, peace, be still, or whatever means you have of regularly creating a pathway into that place. I know that in my work, I try to help people discover how to do that. I'm pretty darn sure you do the same.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
I'll come see you anytime.
Yes, it's like, yeah, absolutely. And and I do it with myself
Yeah.
because, it's like, life offers you, let's say it this way. I'm not spiritual bypassing, but life offers you opportunities, right? And circumstances. And so we can see them as like, oh my gods, or we can see them as, oh my God.
Mhm.